So we're almost ready now to drop the engine down. A couple of things to remember. Firstly, and most importantly, is the fuel line definitely disconnected and chocked up so it can't drop anything out. The heater hoses that go from the heat exchangers onto the body, because otherwise you won't be able to move the engine, and likewise the two cables that operate the heat exchangers. Make sure they're undone. All we need to do now is just put the wiring loom somewhere safe, give the jack a couple of pumps just so that we can lift it up and pull it out, and we're ready to go. So we've given the jack a couple of pumps and it's literally just lifted a couple of centimetres, so whilst you're pumping you can double check against the engine bay here. And you might want to have a friend around because the engine can be quite a bit of weight, but it should now be a case of just literally pulling it back a little and maybe giving it an extra pump on the jack. And there we can see the whole engine's come back. Just before we actually let the jack down, it's always a good idea to make sure that the cup of the jack is actually underneath the sump so that everything's nicely balanced. Just one final check to make sure it's as far back as it's going to come, and you have to do this very gently and in stages. If it's the first time you've done it, get a friend to balance the engine, but we just literally want that to come down ever so slowly. And if at any stage you're not sure, just lock it back off again. And we're looking to draw it back so that the clutch cover comes off of the input shaft. Now we can see it's free and it's balanced up again, and we're ready to go down again. One thing to watch out for is the top pulley, and particularly this nut catching on the rubber here, because you don't want to rip that. But we're ready to drop a little lower. And again, each time it goes down, just make sure it's nicely balanced. It's catching on something. And it's just the engine bay seal. Okay, with the engine partially down and nice and flat and stable, we need to make sure that we withdraw the throttle cable, because if that catches, it can unbalance the engine and possibly worse than that, damage the throttle cable. So it's simply a case of feeling behind for the other end of the guide tube, and then a little bit at a time, just withdrawing it until it's out, and pull it away free. And then we can just gently take it the whole way down, remembering to watch out for that nut against the valance. And it really is as simple as that. Now the engine's down as far as it will go on the jack, so we now need to remove it from the jack. Now you can do that in several ways. You might wish to actually lower it down onto some pieces of wooden blocks or maybe even bricks on either side. You can use a friend and the pair of you can lift it up. Maybe somebody else pulled a jack out. But I've been doing this for a few years now, and I usually just gently rock it off the back, hold the engine up and withdraw the jack. So that's the way that I'm going to do it. All you need to remember is be careful, don't hurt your back, and don't drop anything. Okay, so being careful with your fingers and with the engine. Just literally slide it back ever so gently and then get ready to withdraw the jack. So we pull the jack out, slide the jack right out of the way, and then when you come down again, watch the top of the alternator or the dynamo, whichever you've got, and just slide the engine forwards again. You'll be surprised at how easily it will move around, and put it on the floor. And at this point you can see that the engine's too tall for where the car is to slide out. So what we'll do is go around and jack the vehicle up, and then we can slide the engine back out and then put the vehicle back down on the axle stands. Well, now the engine's out, we're looking at the gearbox bell housing here, and first off we can see the top bolt, the nut that was so difficult to do from behind the engine here, and the other one that we got to with the socket and the ratchet. And I guess the most obvious thing here is to note just how much wet oil there is sprayed all around everywhere. And also we can see where these rubber mounts have started to go very spongy from being exposed to all the oil. Okay, so we've jacked the vehicle up. Now you can either extend your axle stand so that it's up to height and safe again, or withdraw the engine quickly and smoothly, but either way, be careful. So it should just be a case of pulling the engine, and if you zigzag it, generally it will walk out quite happily, all on its own. If you try and pull it in one go, chances are you'll pull a muscle. So just make sure it's clear at the back of the vehicle, and then put the jack back down again.